Hey guys, it's Mike from Shimino's Workshop. Here I have a Korbanth Crimson Menace. This is a batch of Korbanth installs that I've been working on using Jimmy's dual crystal reveal chassis. So essentially this is it's really two chassis that you know, are connected, right? And so they operate independently. You got a ProffieBoard, you got an 18650 battery in-hilt for in-hilt charging. There's a 1.3 recharge port here. You have a 24mm base speaker, which is concealed between the ProffieBoard and the crystal. Well, on this side, that's where it is, and the sound goes that way. And then on the bottom, it's here, and the sound goes that way. You have the Shtok ECOs that come with most Korbanth installs, some tactile switches, you know, two crystal chambers, each powered by you know, a single pixel accent. So you know, these are a mix of some PLA for the main body, resin painted for the crystal chambers, the accent pieces, kill keys, and let's see, orientation wise, you can see there's a smaller holder that orients to the top of the staff, and then down here you kind of have a bigger holder area for the PCB. That would be the bottom, and the crystals are meant to orient with the sound vents. This way you get, you know, you get your sound coming through the vents, but you also get some shine through from the crystals going through the vents. So a couple of things that I wanted to go through. I believe Korbanth already has on their YouTube channel probably an assembly video. You know, due to shipping limitations and whatnot, the claws probably won't be attached when the customer receives these, but I wanted to walk through what you'll do to attach, because when you receive it, the chassis will be inserted into the hilt, the claws won't be attached. So I want to kind of go over, you know, what you should expect. So the first thing, and this may not be necessary, but you can remove a couple of things up here. And so you can see by doing that, you reveal a part of the chassis system that's not removable. It's always in place, and that allows for your quick disconnect. So what's going on really is you have your, at the top of the chassis, you have short pin ECO that's connecting to a blade side about here, and then that blade side is wired to another short pin ECO, which your blade would ultimately connect to. 7/8 inch blade socket on both sides. Okay, but what we need to do is get the right size hex. 2.5, and we'll take that one screw out right up top. Don't lose your screws. That'll reveal Okay, so you can see there's a hole here. That's the screw we just removed. So when putting it back, that's your orientation. Right, there's only one hole in the hilt, and there's only one hole. Okay. So the way this works, the piece that holds the claw, right, has two small holes and one larger hole. So can you guess what you need to do? The claws will, come in individual bags inside the box. The small ones come in a small bag here, and the large claw comes in a large bag there with the screw in the claw. So down here you see you have some screw holes. That's the bottom. And the large claw points up. So just align the hole in the claw with the hole in the claw holder. I would probably suggest some blue Loctite. They're really, unless you're transporting or going to ship this in the future, you should never have to take these screws out. And to ensure, now the screws do come with a lock washer. See, there's a washer there, but it's a lock. So as you tighten the screw, it locks down onto this washer, and that helps to keep the screw from backing out or loosening over time, which will prevent a wobble. Throw a small little dab of blue Loctite. You can get it at a hardware store if you don't have any. Small little on the tip of the screw. Not a lot, just a little bit, because you won't get it out, especially without stripping this. That'll really help make sure that these screws don't loosen over time. I'm not saying that they will, because it has this lock washer on it, but the blue Loctite will really help. Do not use red. Red is permanent. Blue is at least considered temporary, and that seal will break. Plus, you could always put heat on this if you had to. So the same thing with the small claws. No, upside down. Right, so the large claw points up, the small claws point down. And again, don't over tighten, you'll feel it when it gets snug. That's the lock washer doing its job. Okay. So a little bit of blue Loctite on all the screws. Heed my warning. If you're going to use Loctite, literally just a little bit, not even the size of a pea, size of a rice. Think that small. That little amount goes a long way. So you're good, right? And even without the blue Loctite, that feels nice and secure. Now you can, and do this without the chassis in there. You don't want to hit the pins with metal, right? So just be careful. Take your time. Pay attention to what you're doing. Don't lose your screws. Put them where they're not going to roll off or fall off and get lost in the oblivion. You could even do a little blue Loctite on this screw if you want, because again, you shouldn't really, as long as you're going to keep this, shouldn't have to worry about having to take this apart unless you're going to ship it. Then taking it apart will help, with shipping. You can use a smaller box, right? So that's that. Okay. Can you see that? Yeah. Good enough, right? Okay. So then you could put the larger hex away, and now we have a smaller hex, which is 1.5. So for the claws, we're dealing with a 2.5. For the rest, we're going to use a 1.5. And now what we can do is put, okay, put your ring back on. Now, as you can see, I already put the blade plug in, made it flush to the top, and I locked the retention screw. To put the blade in, remove the retention screw or loosen it, take the blade plug out, put the blade in, get it seated, right? Get the blade seated to where it needs to be, so it's making contact with the ECO PCB. Lock it, and then you throw your cap on. For now, I'm just going to keep that in there. Okay. So now on the bottom is how we get the chassis inserted. Same type of setup on the bottom. Okay, we take this bottom piece off, we take the ring off. These you don't have to separate. Again, you need to separate them to access the retention screw if you're going to put a blade in or take the plug out. And you'll notice the ring is covering chassis retention. There's 2 chassis retention. So when you're going to insert the chassis, just loosen them a little bit. You don't have to take them out, but loosen them so that the chassis can slide in and out, right? So for now, let's just do chassis insertion. So obviously we want buttons to align, but we also want the sound vents to align. So that's your orientation. Okay, find your sound vents, find your crystal chambers, and that's your alignment. It's a snug fit, so don't be too concerned if it's too snug. Okay. And what we're trying to do, or at least what I do, you can see the button, and you can see the you can follow the button through the sound vent. You kind of want to get the button in the middle. There's 3 holes of the sound vent. You want to get it lined up so that it continues going forward and stays in line with the buttons on the hilt. Because it's a nice snug fit, it shouldn't rotate, but press your buttons, make sure they're lined up. You can hear them clicking. And what I generally do, don't lock it too much. In fact, before you lock the retention down, put this on. This will help press the chassis forward. And once it's in place, just lock it a little bit. The goal is just to keep the chassis from turning. It's snug. It's not going to really drop out. At least not this one. Now it's in, and your retention screws are locked down. Now you can put your ring on. Then you can put your I don't even know what you want to call this piece. Your blade holder, perhaps. And then the cap. Okay, and now you're in. Okay. So it's not going to fall, right? Because you got the it's snug to begin with, and you got the retention screws on. But even if I take the retention screw out, it ain't going to drop. This one's a snug one. What I do Hopefully I can get this on camera. This is called the palm slap. Right? It's going to be difficult to get your fingers in there. So you got to give it a nice solid palm slap, and it'll drop out just a little bit. And that should be enough. No. Pretty sure I loosened that up. Might have to give it a second palm slap. Yeah, that looked... It's humid here today too, so I have a feeling the plastic may have expanded. Okay. So palm slap. So again, some of these might be more snug than others. That's just the tolerance dealing with plastic sometimes, and there's a lot going on here, right? To be able to fit the right size speaker, and so tolerances are tight. Let's see, maybe this one goes a little bit. And these are brand new, so the constant in and out over time might, you know, break down some of the high edges, and it'll insert more smoothly over time. But that's your general idea, right? Is you want to, you know, there's a couple of things. Like I said, we could use the switch in the sound vent to get orientation, and once you're there, now you have your crystal chamber that you can use as orientation, and even this hole, hopefully you can see that on camera, but this little slice in the PCB holder area, as long as you keep that centered. And that's the other thing too, there chassis there are, you probably can't see it, but there are little indentations in the chassis for the retention screws. They're not holes, just little indentations, but you can use those as alignment as well. Okay, that's two of them. Okay. Now pick your poison. So we have the kill key. You can
formerly Darth, now just more.
Okay, don't lose those kill keys.
Formerly Darth, now just more.
The way I oriented the buttons, the crystal chamber side are your auxiliary buttons. Top auxiliary, bottom auxiliary. Opposite the chamber are your power buttons. Bottom power, top power. Let's hear what the battery is.
3.40 volts. 3.41 volts.
Okay. I've fully charged a couple of them, and some I've already drained their battery in testing. So this is one that's drained already, obviously. 3.4, still good to go. You know, in the later versions of Proffie, there's the low battery monitor and the auto shut off. So, you know, so at this level, at 3.4 volts, things will function. If I were to put this in with 2 full blades, you know, maybe you'll get some sound distortion as that voltage decreases, but it should work even down to 3.2, 3 volts. Once it hits 3 volts, you'll start getting that low battery warning. It'll shut itself off to protect the battery, charge it, right? But this comes with your standard Korbanth bundle, which has a whole ton of fonts, K-Sith, Kyberphonic, some random fun ones. I'm not going to go through all of them. But same thing. So now, you know, I don't know if this is anodized or try to avoid contact with the pins on anything metal. But, you know, same rules apply. As for alignment, get it in, turn it on. Now remember, power is opposite the chamber. Power is on the claw side, large claw side. Top power, bottom power.
That this contest cannot be decided by our knowledge of the Force.
I can feel your anger. It gives you...
As I was saying before, the tolerances are very tight. It's possible as you slide it in that the buttons, especially if you accidentally push a button with your fingers or your palm as you're inserting, you might press one of the tactile switches, or the button might be pushing the tactile switch down like a long press. So once you're seated, just test out the buttons, make sure everything's lined up. Because it's nice and snug, I don't think you have to, once it's in place, I don't think you have to worry about it moving or turning. And when you turn it on, as long as you got contact or you got light out of the top emitter, you know it's seated properly. Tighten your retention. Put your ring back on. If the screws are not tightened enough, the ring won't go on because the screw will get in the way. Put your bottom blade holder back on. Not too tight, tight enough, but not too tight, okay? Turn the bottom one on. Make sure you got light out of the bottom. Now you know you're good. Put your cap on. This is what you don't want to do too tight. If I were to turn this and force it to be tight, it's going to be difficult to get this off of the black blade holder piece, okay? Now I'll put a blade in the top. So I'm taking the cap off, I'm loosening the blade retention, taking the plug out. You get two plugs. I'll leave them inserted, but generally they come out in this little slot, you know, stored in that little slot in the kit. Okay, get that seated. You'll feel the pogo pin compression. Hold it in place. Tighten it down, turn it on, boom. When you're good, you slide the cap right over the blade. Boom. I only have one 7/8 inch blade, so I apologize, I can't do both, but this, as I explained at the beginning, the way this is designed, you have two completely independent chassis going on that just happen to be joined in the middle. So think of it as top half, bottom half. Two different batteries. You have plenty of power. Two ProffieBoards, so you could even, you know, if depending on your skill with ProffieBoard, if you want to make the top operate different than the bottom, go for it. As part of these installs, both top and bottom hilts are programmed the same way. They're KR24 mil bass speakers. The volume is set at 2000. When I install for Korbanth, I always put the ProffieOS on the SD card, the config files. There's two of them. They're on the SD cards. There is a top config and a bottom config because, well, I don't need to take it out.
Threatening me, Master Jedi.
The reason the config files are different is because of the Proffie orientation. By default, the default orientation is USB facing the pommel, and that's good for the top. But if you notice on the bottom, the USB and the SD card is facing the emitter. There's a configuration to make that work properly. So this way, if the config was not defined properly and the USB is facing up, but Proffie thinks it's facing down, then drag won't work properly, right? You'd have to be upside down and then you're going to get a drag, right? So orientation, that's why there's two configs. Everything else about the configs are the same, except the USB orientation. So make note of that. The ProffieBoards slide into place. They're not glued in. They slide in and they're held by the way Jimmy designs his chassis. You can't slide it out because the accent pieces are glued in place. I used hot glue here because that way you at least have a way to break these accent pieces off if you ever do need to have these maintenance in the future. But you'll need a right angle USB adapter if you're going to try to reprogram these. You can also get the SD card out with a pair of maybe tweezers. And of course you have your kill keys. I believe Korbanth will supply you with a charger and a 1.3 adapter. The recharge port is at an angle, but if you don't use the proper adapter, you're gonna wind up hitting the USB port here, and some adapters won't even be, you won't even be able to get some adapters in place. So Korbanth should be giving you the right adapter so that it works and fits and doesn't touch or potentially break the USB port. Be mindful of that. Some of the other, so again, I live in New York and it's very humid here today. That humidity is going to impact the plastic. The plastic will absorb moisture. And when it absorbs moisture, it's going to expand. Think of a piece of bread, right? When you put water on bread, it's going to absorb like a sponge, right? And it's going to enlarge. Same thing happens with plastic. So if you're in a dry climate where there's not a lot of humidity, these are going to slide in and out a lot easier than what you're seeing here. The reason I'm harping on that is because as you take this out and you're not paying attention and you go boop, chassis, and you haven't locked the retention, especially if you haven't locked the retention, that chassis is going to drop. You're going to drop it on the floor, on the table, and that's not going to be a good day for anybody. So even here, when you're taking your chassis out, am I in video? Yeah. Keep it horizontal. Put a finger at the bottom. Don't allow it to fall. Keep your hand at the bottom. Make sure you get make sure you're ready to catch it.
By our knowledge of the Force.
I'm going to take that blade out because it's adding some weight on the top, and I want to palm slap this thing out. Okay, just drop your blade plug back in. It should just, you won't even have to work to make it flush. It's been designed to be flush when you drop it in all the way. Okay. Okay, this one's a little bit looser than the other one, so this one palm slapped right out. Hey guys, so my camera For those that watch my videos, you'll know that my camera shuts off around the 30-minute mark automatically. I don't know why. And sometimes I catch it, but like today I didn't even catch it. I probably spoke another 10 minutes before. Frustrating. Okay, so I did a palm slap, I removed it, and one thing I recall was when I took the chassis out, this was off, but the top was still on, and I was explaining why. When I was removing the blade, I think I accidentally hit the power button or the auxiliary button, which extended the idle timeout. So there is, on the config, I have 5 minutes configured as idle timeout. This one, I didn't accidentally hit the bottom buttons, so this timed out after 5 minutes. The crystal was off, but the top one was still on because I had hit one of the buttons and extended it. And so I was trying to explain after my video stopped why that was. So that's why. I always include a 5-minute idle timeout. It shuts the LEDs off after 5 minutes of inactivity, and that just conserves battery. I think I then went on to explain, again, to talk about the config files. If you're feeling like you want to change, please go on the SD card. I have the version of ProffieOS, which is 5.9 that I used. It has the config folder. Use what's on the SD card as a starting point, because it has the correct pad assignments for the crystal chamber and the main blades, has the right data pads that I've used. If you don't use the config file on the SD card as the starting point, you're going to mess it up. Of course, I always keep a backup. The bottom is different than the top because of the USB orientation. Keep that in mind. Like I said before, there's a top config and a bottom config. That's the only difference. Okay, so I have no issue with you, trying to reconfigure it if that's what you want to do. Add your own fonts, remove font, whatever you want to do it. It's your Saber, you bought it. But be smart about it. I forget what else I might have said. Hopefully it wasn't that important, but like always, thanks for watching. Feedback or comments, leave them in the comment section. I do my best to reply to comments, although I've been pretty busy with some things recently.